You've just found the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Here, you'll discover the people and places that make Montana like no other place in the world. If you love to fish, hunt, or just enjoy creating your own adventure in the outdoors, you have come to the right place. The Montana Outdoor Podcast is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, home of Boss Snowplows and Accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go to rmtte.com and see everything they have waiting for you online, or just come by 5680 Expressway in Missoula, and by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, delivering the highest quality lumber, paneling, flooring, and reclaimed wood products anywhere in North America. Let them guide you through the woods at their showroom in Missoula on Highway 93 South or at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, let's go discover Montana's great outdoors with your host, Downrigger Dale. Have a great show, buddy. Can't wait to hear it.
Thank you very much, Roger. And as Roger just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. And boy, I'm so glad you're here because we're going to have a little fun today. Well, we always have fun, but this will be an interesting one. You know, lately we've been doing all these hunt previews. In fact, we've covered now all 7 of the hunting regions in Montana. So you got a good preview of all that. And by the way, thank you for all your emails and comments and that. I really appreciate it. And by all means, if you want more information on any of those regions or any of that, you know, just let me know. Email me. And I'm more than happy to get you the information you're looking for. Now, coming up, we will also be talking about some of the results from the check stations around the state. So I'll work those into some upcoming podcasts and that. But since it's Halloween, I thought maybe we'd have a little fun with that. Now, before we get into that, I do want to take care of a few things, as I always do. Number one, I want to welcome all of our active military all across the United States and all around the world at bases around the world. And that we are so proud that so many of you out there doing your great things and protecting us around the world. When you get a little time off, you watch this podcast, and that means a lot to us. So thank you very much for your service. And I hope this podcast brings a little home back to you, wherever you are. We just love what you do for our country. And speaking of loving what you do for our country, I also want to give a big thank you, shout out to all of our veterans that are watching and listening around Montana and around the rest of the United States. Welcome, and thank you for your service. It is something we will never forget, and thank you so much. Now, another thing that I want to be sure and remind you, our promotional folks that do all the behind-the-scenes work on this great podcast, and I couldn't do it without them, so thank you. They always want me to remind you to please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. That helps us a lot on YouTube and all the other places you can find the podcast on, about 40 of them now around the internet. So if you would please be sure and subscribe, like, and share the podcast. That really does help us out a lot and helps us keep going. Another thing I would like to remind you is there are 2 companies that make this whole thing possible. That is Superior Hardwoods of Montana, who are amazing. I'll tell you more about them in the podcast, as I always do, and Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Both of them have been just amazing sponsors and have done so much to make sure this podcast keeps going. So thank you. And whenever you're needing any of the things that they do, which I know you're gonna, use them because they're amazing. So I'll tell you more about that as we go along. Now, today, what are we going to do? Well, it is Halloween, And so I thought, well, let's embrace the creepy side of things. So now, getting to the topic of what we're talking about today, I have brought the good witch Megan Bicking onto the screen. And there she is in all her glory. So obviously, we're going to be talking about Halloween stuff here, and it's going to be really cool. But real quick, before we get into that, Megan, I wanted you to bring us up to date of where you left off when you were on the podcast with us last time. We were talking about Judith Landing, the newest state park. Um, Brought us to 56 now. Give us a little update of where we're at there, and are we to a point where public can start to access some of this stuff, and kind of give us a little peek into the future of where that's going for this new state park?
Yeah, you betcha. So, yes, the park is open to the public. It actually opened this summer, so anyone is welcome to head on in and enter the park and check it out. So, as far as overall development, when you go to the park, you might notice that not a lot of development has taken place yet. We are currently in a phase where we're planning for historic preservation, planning for park development, which you should start to see take place over the next year, leading into 2027, actually. S- We're entering a current phase of development at the park that's going to include adding a new campground, enhancing trails, and historic research and interpretation. So next year, you should be able to see some of that infrastructure show up. And I do want to really reassure people that this is designated as a rustic heritage park. You're not going to see major development there. You're not going to see like, mow it down, pave it over situation.
Mhm.
You're gonna be seeing really thoughtful design to help people access the park in a way that protects the landscape and the structures, as well as keeps people safe and on track. So, yeah, in the next year, we should be able to see some of that campground development take place. And then the following year, something that the foundation is working on is helping to fund enhanced historic preservation, specifically of the PN mansion.
Yeah, and
So the PN
that's the
mansion.
mansion we've got up on the screen now, and you can see that. So, what's neat about is I understand this plan is you're kind of going to leave it the way it got left, but enhance it to make it a little safer for people. Will there be a time, do you think, ever that we'll be able to enter that mansion, or is it always just going to be kind of seeing it from the outside?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and you're spot on. So currently, the state has provided funding to um, complete historic stabilization of that structure. So we will currently see the building from the outside, and the state is doing work to make sure that it's standing up straight and that the other outbuildings are also going to remain standing. But actually, that's the only funding they have for historic preservation is just literally to keep the building standing up. What we're coming in, as a foundation to and we're coming in to help is enhance historic preservation. So one of our ultimate goals with Judith Landing State Park is that it becomes kind of a living history site where people can really become immersed in the really incredible history that took place there. So what we're working on currently as a private foundation is we are trying to secure some funding for enhanced preservation. And our ultimate goal is to preserve the inside, restore it to its original state.
Oh,
It's
wow.
currently kind of just gutted,
Yeah.
is my understanding. It's actually completely closed. I've never been indoors. I don't think it's safe to really enter for the public. But what we want to do is come in, provide some funding so that we can make that site a place that people can go into, maybe for bring school field trips, have some education components, and really go in there and understand what that site was like back in the day. That's our ultimate goal and a place that we're coming in to help out.
And, that's important to make this distinction is we have Montana State Parks, but then we also have the Montana State Park Foundation, and there is a difference. Um, the foundation relies on just private money, right?
That's correct. So we are a 501(c)(3). We are completely separate from the state agency of the state parks and the FWP. But our job is to come in when their budgets fall a little bit short of what we think are great goals for them to be reaching. So, for example, at Judith Landing, they have the funding to keep the building standing up, but we know the best use of that space will be if people can go in there and really experience it. So
Yeah.
we're coming and trying to find that private funding to help support that. And we are a private foundation. We don't receive state funding. We do have great ways for people to contribute to projects across the state, whether it be through making a donation to the foundation, or actually having our license plate on your car is a great way to
Yeah.
support our nonprofit. And honestly, any nonprofit that you love, looking into if they have a license plate is a great way to support them. As far as revenue goes for the state, we talked about it last time, so I won't get in too deep, but state revenue or revenue for the state parks really comes from things like camping reservations, and it also comes from that $9 fee
Mhm.
that adds onto your vehicle registration. That actually goes straight into the state parks. And that's a really great button to click when you sign up for your registration because those funds really help keep the parks afloat.
Yeah, I do
Um,
that every time. I mean,
mhm,
$9 for the year, what the heck?
yeah,
Uh,
why not?
and but it adds up and can
What?
really help out.
It's significantly, yeah.
But when you go to these state parks and you see these really cool enhancements and that, often that's you guys that are making those kind of things happen.
Yeah, anything that's really above and beyond, is likely to be a Montana State Parks Foundation project. So we come in a lot of different arenas. Historic preservation, land acquisition are some of the ones we're talking about today. But we're also working really hard on just your basic state park projects, making sure basic infrastructure is up to date. A lot of times, just really basic things like trails and docks degrade, and there's just not funding to replace them on a really quick timeline. And that's a place that we can come in. Our other big focus is on accessibility. So that is a huge, massive priority for us as well as the state. And we're actually working on a really cool collaborative framework to help the foundation engage members of the disability community in the park project planning process. So we were able to pilot that up actually up at Wayfarer State Park on Flathead, and we brought about 20 disability advocates. So we had people in wheelchairs, we had kids with their parents, we had people who are hard of hearing and low of vision, all interpret that park and give feedback. And now our next step is going to be to come up with some project recommendations to bring to life at that park. So that's just some of the areas that we come in and help our state parks thrive.
Mhm. So that kinda takes me to the next, phase of what we wanna talk about here, and that is, I mean, obviously, Megan doesn't dress as a witch on a regular basis. We're talking about, having some fun with Halloween, since that is the time of the year here, and Montana is so unique, in my opinion, because we have so many different ghost towns, and, our ghost towns came about through really the early development of our state. And so they're really neat. If you just love history, they're neat to go through. But this time of the year, I mean, let's face it, we all like to kind of scare each other.
Sure.
There are story after story after story in these ghost towns of hauntings, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, these are, a lot of people lived a rough life and many passed away there. But
Mhm.
there's some unique things about it. So let's start with some of these ghost towns that you want to talk about. And folks, I really want you to watch this. I'll throw up some pictures as Megan is talking so you can see what she's talking about. And I'm almost going to guarantee you most of you have not been to some of these. These are really interesting places. So where do we want to go first?
Yeah, I would like to start at probably one of the least known ghost towns in Montana. I'm calling it the newest ghost town, which seems like an oxymoron. So that is Albright. Albright is a ghost town. It was recently added to the register, the National Register of Historic Places, which was a Montana State Parks Foundation project. We helped fund and report that, and it was just included in the register this year. So it's on the map now. So interestingly about Albright, it's like literally not on the map. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to find it, it is very tricky to find, but I can tell you how to get there. So Albright, it was also called Limedale, which does make sense because it was a limestone quarry and kiln site. That was the industry there. So Albright, aka Limestone, is located inside Sluice Boxes State Park, which is on Belt Creek. It is deep in Sluice. It
Yeah.
is really, really in there. And literally, like I said, it doesn't show up on a map. It doesn't show up on Onyx. You can kind of see the structures on Onyx or overhead view, but it's not a location on a map. So it's very tricky to track down. And it's
Mhm.
definitely remote.
What amazes me is at one time there was 500 people that lived in there. I mean,
Yeah, so
going
it
way back
was
in there.
a industrial hub, with limestone kilns, a power plant, and literally an entire rail line that, brought workers and, residents into that location because it is really deep in the canyon. So that entire railroad infrastructure that you see in the more, front country parts of sluice boxes is part of that railroad system. And you can see remnants of that pretty much throughout the entire park. It does mean people should be really careful because there are railroad remnants there. We don't
Mhm.
want anyone going, getting tripping and falling, getting hurt. So anyway, yeah, it was a really considerably well populated place with around 500 residents at its peak. It also had a really, I think this is super interesting, a very diverse immigrant population that worked there. So there were people from all over the world that were actually living in Sluice Boxes Canyon, which is or Belt Creek Canyon, which is pretty wild. So another interesting piece, I don't have any specific ghost stories there, but I'm sure as we do more research and talk to more people, we'll
Yeah.
find some creepy stories. Another super interesting piece of this site is that back in the 1940s, after the limestone operation had shut down, it was used. The train system was used for the fish trains, which I think is so cool. They would cart people from Great Falls, hop on the train, all the way down to Belt Creek to go fishing, and then they would send them back at the end of the day, and I think they
Really?
ran that every Sunday for a number of years,
Happy
and
day.
it just seems like such a cool, piece of history that I think a lot of people don't know about, and it's just a really interesting piece of Montana outdoor recreation history. So, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience going to sluice boxes or going to, Albright for the first time. So, if you're familiar with Sluice Boxes State Park, it basically runs around the entire creek, for quite a few miles, and to follow the trail the whole way, you have to make about 12 stream crossings. Um, I went there in June. So the
Mhm.
end of June, I had to complete a grant report actually for that historic nomination. And there's really few pictures of sluice boxes or sorry, of Albright. So I was like, I'm just gonna go and take some pictures. Because I really wanted to go hike that anyway. And it's an incredible hike. It's gorgeous. It's incredible. There are so many stream crossings. I really want people to be prepared for that if they
Yeah.
go there. Do not try to do that in high water. It's going to be super dangerous. I think even June 30th when I went was really kind of pushing it. Um, so it's a pretty advanced hike as far as stream crossings go. As far as terrain, it's pretty easy, but the stream crossings are what will get you. So like I said before, Albright is not on the map. I had done quite a bit of research and obviously read quite a bit about it and thought I understood how to get there. So I started hiking from like the beginning of the park and I got about 3 miles in and I ran into the park ranger, Colin, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, going to Albright. He's like, "You are not even close."
Ah,
Yeah, I was way far off, and I'm pretty familiar with the site. So the way you wanna go is actually on the way opposite end, and you need to access it via the stream. So you're using, like, Montana stream access law to get in there, work your
okay.
way up the stream across those stream crossings until you can get to the park. So I think it's Logging Bridge Road is the better way to get there. But I ended up, I hiked back 3 miles, so I'd already had 6 miles in, got back in my car, drove all the way around to the other side, brought my dog. And we hiked from the correct end to the closer end and made it to the park. And it is absolutely awe-inspiring when you go by because you do not expect to see giant industrial brick, kind of beautiful structures. You just don't expect to see that in a tight canyon with nothing else going on.
Yeah.
So it's a super cool site, and I'm really excited to see what kind of research we can do there now that we have that National Register of Historic Places
Mhm.
designation. Yeah.
And what's neat about going to these places, I think it really gives you a picture of the how resourceful, Montanans were. I mean, you needed infrastructure, and rather than, say, in a lot of cases, hauling it from back east, they dug it up
Mhm.
and smelted it and put it together, and that makes Montanans pretty. I think it really shows the beginnings of that Montana spirit. Um,
I agree. It's incredible when you actually go there physically and think about the logistics that must have taken place back in the early 1900s for that to happen. It's
Yeah,
truly something.
yeah. Where do you wanna head to next now in our ghost towns
Yeah, so I think I'm
Halloween?
gonna keep going, like, most well-known to least well-known,
Mhm.
or no, least well-known to most well-known. So the next one I think is a little bit less known, is Elkhorn, and Elkhorn is a really, I think as far as, like, seeing a lot of different structures, it's one of the coolest places to go. But what's interesting is actually only 2 of those structures are part of the state park. So it's actually the smallest state park, and it's 2 structures. So it is the Fraternity Hall and Gillian Hall or Gillian Hall. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. They are really beautiful examples of frontier architecture. And just that park is a really quiet and kind of like restful, nice just place near Boulder, Montana.
So, Megan, as far as, th the ghost town, why did people move there? And there was kind of an interesting tragedy that happened in Elkhorn Ghost Town, right?
Right, right. So Elkhorn started to be populated back in the 1870s. So it was a really early town in Montana.
Yeah.
Um, and an interesting fact was actually, unlike a lot of towns that were populated quite by men, primarily with, mining, things like that, a lot of the people that moved to Elkhorn were actually married couples who had immigrated to the United States. So it had a lot more of a family oriented
Hmm.
nature than a lot of other historic ghost towns that we talk about today. So it was a super bustling town, family oriented. It actually had around 2,500 people.
Really?
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, which is incredible to think about way out in the mountains there. And I think this is going to be a recurring theme. Just the logistics and the work and the effort that it took to get there and to build there must have been something. So the town really started to see its downfall actually pretty early in its history. Back in 1888, 1889, the diphtheria pandemic ripped through the town,
Oh,
taking most of the children's lives, which is horrifying. And most of those children are actually still buried in the town cemetery, which is, you can go and check that out. It's one of the spookier, colder places in the park. You can definitely feel some just like sad, tragic energy there,
mhm.
uh, with all those little kids. So, with that tragedy, and there was a railroad service there as well, that went away. And the drop of silver prices, I did go back and do a little research and found out that silver was one of the main draws for establishing that town.
Mhm.
When all of those things fell to the wayside, so did the town. And, today it's interesting that there's 50 people living there. It's actually grown
Yeah.
in the last decade, but that's just a little bit of the historical context of how it became a ghost town.
Yeah, and, back in the day, diphtheria was I mean, that was like a death sentence, especially for the little ones if they got it.
Yeah,
That was
yeah, and you can imagine there probably wasn't a ton of, medical resources out someplace like that in the late 1800s. I do want people to know it's a full town. When you go there, there's quite a few structures, and it's actually people's private residences. There are some people that actually live. Yeah, so this is an awesome one to check out, and I just really encourage people to go there, but be very respectful of the people that actually still reside and own property there. Um, I was actually surprised to learn that about a decade ago there was 10 residents, and now there's 50. So it's actually a growing
really?
town. And it's a great place to check out, and the adjoining trails in like the Elkhorn region are gorgeous. So that's a great one.
The people that live there, what do they
That's a
do?
great question.
Uh,
We can go there. Ask 'em. I am not sure.
maybe if you bump into a resident, just don't go beating on their doors, but if you bump into one walking around, maybe just ask them,
Yeah. Maybe they work
"What made you wanna
remotely.
live
Maybe
here?"
they're zooming in from their ghost town.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a story I'll share later, about
Okay.
somebody that ran into that. So next up after we, in fact, we're gonna take one quick break here, and when we come back, where are we heading to next?
We are gonna head to Granite Ghost
Ah,
Town right outside of Phillipsburg.
yeah, now that's I've been to this one, several times, very interesting. Alright, we will head to Granite Ghost Town State Park right after this. Are you gonna get out hunting or to your favorite ice fishing hole this year? Yeah, I know, finding the time is always the hard part, isn't it? Well, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can help you get the things done that you have to do so you have time to do the things you want to do. How about clearing the driveway or work areas of snow? Yeah, that can be a time sucker for sure. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has just what you need. A huge selection of Boss snowplows and accessories that'll fit any truck or ATV even. Boss snowplows are flat amazing at removing snow fast. Or how about something that can serve you at both work and on your next adventure outdoors? Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has awesome Diamond C utility trailers and accessories that can haul work equipment during the week and then your ATV or snowmobile or other awesome outdoor toys on the weekend. Of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer also has an amazing service department with top technicians and parts pros that are ready to fix or replace whatever you need, from installing a new fifth wheel or gooseneck hitch, or even rewiring the lights on your trailer so they work the way they're supposed to. What about getting some other time-saving accessories for your truck installed? That, my friends, is for sure one of their specialties. And get this, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can even help with financing. Yeah, they've got you covered. This is going to be a great fall and winter season, my friends, especially if you go see Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula at 5680 Expressway. You can call them at 406-549-4243 or check them out online at rmtte.com. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, rmtte.com. Get a hold of them today and then start planning that hunting trip. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Megan Bicking is my guest. We're talking about ghost towns in Montana. Halloween. Let's embrace it and embrace the creepy, as we say in this one. So going to next, we are where we headed to next here. We're going to head on over to where?
Granite Ghost Town, just right
Granite.
outside Phillipsburg.
Yeah, and this, I've got a few pictures up of Granite Ghost Town, a cool old car laying there and some other interesting stuff there. Talk a bit about Granite Ghost Town and what people experience there.
Yeah. So Granite Ghost Town is a state park, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It was known as Montana's Silver Queen, which would be a great trivia question. I'm going to bank that one. I do trivia a lot, so I'm holding on to that.
Okay.
So there was a mine there. A lot of the mining operation, infrastructure is still visible there. It operated for only like 15 or 16 years after silver was discovered. So at its peak, the town had around 3,000 residents. And it was actually Montana's largest silver mining camp for a while. Again, the pandemic of 1893, which I think was that. I'm trying to think what pandemic that was. Regardless, pandemic were there and decimated the town. But the other thing that really kind of put the kibosh on the town was the repeal of the Sherman Silver Purchase Act, which led to the mine no longer really being viable. So this is an interesting town. This is a great one for people to visit because you can tie in a trip to Phillipsburg, which is just a lovely, fun town to visit with lots of great places to check out. So Granite is kind of, the only way I can describe it is it's like above Phillipsburg, up in the mountains there. So it's got less preserved buildings. It's definitely seen a little bit more, just over time, the buildings collapsing and things like that. Some of the remaining structures are the Miners Union Hall. That's really well preserved. And then quite a few remnants of buildings, which are saloons, hotels. And there is actually, so like I said, the location of Granite is basically above Phillipsburg. So there was actually a bobsledding course that was built there. So a bobsledding course from Granite down to Phillipsburg, which is just so interesting to think about. 100 years ago, people were still looking for extreme sports in the mountains.
Isn't that interesting? So
yeah,
you see that kind of stuff, and this brings me to one of my first creepy stories. I had a friend who lived in Maxwell, which is right outside of Phillipsburg, he used to go to Granite Ghost Town a lot, and, when he had first moved there, he went up and it was, him and his girlfriend, and so he thought it would be kinda neat just to, you know, say, "Is there anybody listening to me? Can anybody hear me?" And all that, and, of course, they didn't hear anything, and as they're going, leaving and starting to hike out of there, they hear this, "I hear you," and his girlfriend took off running, and
Yeah,
he was
no
not
way.
far behind her, but yeah, and he swears to me that he heard that.
If
Uh,
they both heard it,
yeah, they both heard it. Yeah,
mhm. Yep, time to go.
yeah, gotta leave, real cool place, gotta go. I said, "Did you go up there very much after?" He said, "I went up a few times, girlfriend never went back. She would not
Wild.
go back."
That's a good one.
Yeah. Ugh.
So our next town that I would like to tour us to, I know that the next town I want to talk about, I have a baby, just a tiny little personal ghost story. But this is the town where it's the most famous state park ghost town, and honestly, maybe the most famous ghost town in Montana. I think there's a couple that toss up in the top there,
Mhm.
but Bannack is the one I'd like to bring you to next, if you're
Bannack
ready.
Ghost Town State Park, yeah. In fact, probably one of them the more famous in the United States, really.
I think so. So
Yeah.
it's an incredibly preserved ghost town. It is just outside of Dillon. If you have never been, absolutely add it to your list. Even if you're not really a history buff or a ghost town buff, it's just a really cool location to go check out. And it's most of its building are preserved and there's lots of interpretive opportunities. And something that's kind of nice that I really enjoy about it is it's a little less touristy than our other large ghost towns. So you can have a little bit more of an intimate experience there. You're not going to find souvenir shops or there is actually the visitor center. So you can get a souvenir if you want, but there's not like multiple souvenir shops and multiple like ice cream stores, bars, things like that. It's truly a historic site. But it's just really well preserved and you can enter quite a few buildings, which makes it really special
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, the buildings are amazing. The other thing that they do is there are some organized activities that you can take part in. Bannock Days is one you definitely don't wanna miss. That's a lot of
Mhm.
fun. They also do the Halloween, deal. Now I that has passed,
Yes,
but
that has passed for this year.
do plan on going there because they actually have some reenactors that will
Mhm.
play the part of some of these characters that were real people,
Yeah.
and there's some this is kinda like the Wild West when you think about it because there was some really bad
W
characters
Yeah, there was some real Wild West stuff
experience
going
too,
on
but
there for
yeah,
sure. Yeah. The sheriff, Henry Plummer, is
right?
probably one of the most famous, notorious characters from Bannock. And I'm trying to find my information on him. He has a lot of just interesting aspects to his life. I think you could honestly do an entire podcast on Henry Plummer. He's just a very dynamic, corrupt, notorious,
Yeah,
murderous, interesting person to talk about. So he was a sheriff of Bannock, and he is known as being a corrupt sheriff. So he was also at the same time the alleged leader of an outlaw gang called the Innocents, who were basically, responsible for lots of murders and robberies and shenanigans
mhm,
down. Um, he was actually captured by vigilantes and hung from his own gallows, his own town that he was the sheriff of
yeah,
back in 1864. And so he's just I think I don't have his entire historical history in my mind, but he's a really interesting character. And he has been reported to have never left Bannock. He is one of the more common sightings that people report. People report seeing his apparition just like literally patrolling the town, wandering around, checking out the old gallows location where he perished.
mhm,
And he's also been sighted at the Skinner Saloon, which I believe is probably one of the places that he was a regular and a current haunt, and Chrisman's store. So he's one of the ones that people see the most of. And I think that they can point him out with his kind of sheriff's outfit. So I've never seen him. I'd like to.
Yeah, I haven't seen
I'd
him.
like to.
I haven't seen him either, but same thing. I've heard of so many tales of people that have seen this apparition of him. He was a very charismatic guy. I mean, when you think about it, he really bamboozled the town for a while. As you know, he's this great heroic sheriff, but turned out that was just his base of operation for all his criminal activities.
Yeah, he was running a game for sure.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting town. It actually has a boot hill, a graveyard up above that.
Mhm.
If you want to creep yourself out, there's one to do that. Now, I have heard that some people will hear a widow crying in the graveyard. So I've heard.
Oh.
Now, I have not
That's
heard that.
that's a ghost story I haven't heard from there,
Yeah.
of the widow crying in the graveyard. Have
Mhm.
you heard the story of Dorothy Dunn?
Mm.
Oh, okay. So she's another one of the most famous ghost sightings, recorded in Bannack. So Dorothy Dunn was a young girl. She was unfortunately 16-year old when she passed away. And what happened was she was hanging out with some friends on Grasshopper Creek and they actually fell in. Somehow none of these three girls knew how to swim.
Oh, I
A
remember hearing
passerby
this.
fortunately saved two of the girls, but very sadly, Dorothy passed away. She drowned in the creek. So, her family and her friends took that really poorly. Obviously, of course,
Yeah.
it's an absolute tragedy. She had a personal connection with the Hotel Mead. Hotel Mead is the really distinct red brick building, that is often in photographs that you'll see of Bannack. So, she was actually the daughter of the hotel manager, I believe, if I'm not
Oh,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, and so one of the locations that she's been reported, being seen as a apparition is in Hotel Mead. We know that there was, just a lot of despair going on after her passing away, and that's one of the sites that people continue to see her, and the thought is that she's looking for her family or her friends. Um, so people have seen her really distinctly. She's like one of the more visible apparitions people have talked about. And they say specifically they see her looking out the windows of Hotel Mead, like watching visitors go by.
Okay,
And also
I have
say
heard about this.
wearing a blue dress.
I guess I didn't know the name, but yes, I have heard about that. In fact, I was there when my daughters were real young, and somebody was telling us this story, and they got a little freaked out. But yeah, I have heard
Well,
about
that's
that.
one of the things if one of the a younger person was saying that and they were feeling freaked out, that's one of the main themes that I've read is that it's a lot of times children or younger people that will actually see the apparitions or feel them, and I think that's just because they have a greater capacity for opening their mind to things like
Mhm.
that. Um, but aside from children seeing her, there's actually been, it's a pretty famous historical ghost town. So there's been, people going in and actually doing like paranormal activity kind of research, which I'm not an expert in at all.
Mhm.
But they've identified like unexplained cold spots that have no explanation and the EMF readings, which is like the sound frequencies, I think. They've recorded those there, and then also the sightings of Dorothy and Henry Plummer and additional kind of mystery figures.
Yeah, that's Bannack is supposed to be one of the most paranormal, I don't know the term for it,
Yeah.
active places in the United States that,
Yeah.
it's
So my
attracted a lot
personal
of
story
researchers.
is I just love spooky stuff. I actually had an ancestor who was killed in the Salem witch trials, so it's always just been, like, infused into my life, this really, passion for the history and understanding the stories, but something about it, just having that spooky element always speaks to me. So, I've always been, like, just kind of waiting to see a ghost. I've never seen a ghost. I just, like I'm just waiting for it to happen. I've got my eyes out for it. So I was in Bannack, maybe a couple years ago. I was actually at the Bannack Days, which is like not the time you expect to see or experience anything paranormal because there's so many people there. So anyway, I'm at Bannack Days with my son. I think he was about 3 years old at the time, and we were in the visitor center. So not the building you think of. And I noticed that the water bottle filler uppers that you put your
Yeah.
water bottle under and it pours the water in automatically when you put it there. I noticed that it was just going on off, on off, on off, on off, and I just went to the front desk person because Montana State Parks Foundation. I was like, "Do they need a new water dispenser? Like, I'll
Yeah.
help them." So I just went to her and I was like, "Hey, I just noticed that your water dispenser is doing some really weird fritzy stuff." And she's like, "Oh, it's the ghost." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "We can't, there's no explanation for this. It just does it sometimes."
So the ghost
She's
is
trying to
probably
look into
fascinated
it.
with what how does that work? Yeah.
I know.
Mm.
So that's my tiny, tiny ghost story. But like I said, I've been just waiting to see a ghost my whole life. And that's as close of it as I've gotten.
Mhm.
So if you're like me and just been waiting for that ghost to show up in your life, go to Bannack because they just might.
Yeah, and here's another one that I heard. Friends of mine traveled, up from Tennessee, went through, the Bannock Ghost Town. I had recommended it to 'em. I said, "That's a good place to go." They were, they turned around and their little girl was gone. She'd kinda wandered off, and they were fascinated looking at stuff, and they finally found her, and they said, "What were you doing? Where were you at?" And she said, "I was, petting the smelly man's horse."
Hmm,
And, they said, "Well, take us to the horse." "Yeah, it's over there." And there was no horse. And
huh.
yeah, I don't know who that maybe the smelly man was, the sheriff, I don't know. But
Yeah. Well,
she
Henry Plummer, I'm sure he didn't smell good.
yeah. But isn't that weird? Yeah.
Yeah, it's super weird. Some of the other stories I've heard are just like the sound of a crying baby near one of the homes, which is sad.
Mhm.
The Bissett house was, I believe, I'm not sure what medical ailment, it might have been diphtheria, but at some point that house was used to house sick people, like to quarantine
Oh.
them. So I've heard a lot of just reports of spirits and weird sounds coming out of the Bissett house. And then also things like doors just opening, closing. And the other thing that's really cool is in front of one of the buildings, I think it's in front of the Masonic Temple, which was also the schoolhouse. There's an old kind of merry-go-round sort of structure, and I've heard that pretty often, just with no wind, it'll just start going, which is kooky.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kooky.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the Masonic, temple there up, on the, I guess you call it a temple, whatever they are, the building
Yeah.
there. I've got a picture of
Mm.
that, up on the screen now. Just for history buffs of just understanding how Montana got settled, because Bannock, if I'm remembering it right, and I'm gonna probably get a bunch of emails, "Know your history, dang it." Uh, wasn't it a territorial capital at one point in time?
Yes, yep, it certainly was. It was Montana's first capital, I believe you are correct there, and it was a gold strike town, so it was established in 1862. The population basically boomed overnight. It went from 0 to a couple thousand really quickly, and it was the first territorial capital, and there's just it's a very rich historical site. There's so many more stories outside of, ghost stories that
Right.
you can learn about there. And it's a really cool place too. It's another one just kind of similar to Granite and Phillipsburg. If you're making a trip out of it, it's awesome to hit up Dillon. It's awesome if you're going during the winter to go to Maverick and go to Elkhorn Hot Springs, I think is actually what that hot springs is called. So it's a cool one to add into a day or a weekend trip too.
Mhm.
I definitely all of the ghost towns are great, but if you're like, I want to go have a living history experience, Bannock is the one for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and there's a lot of, great information that I mean, you can go into historical information overload if you want to on that one, because there's some good documentation
Yeah,
of
and I
everything there.
will shout out our friends over at the Bannock Association. They're the ones who are they're a friends group of Bannock. They're a group that we partner with. We like to work with the friends groups,
Mhm.
and they do an incredible job of really providing really great education opportunities, events, and just supporting the Bannock town in general. So I just want to shout out to them because they're super cool and they're great to
Mhm.
support as well.
When we see a place like Bannock and when we see some of these, you'd mentioned the water fountain thing or whatever,
Mhm.
it's all those little things that the Montana State Park Foundation helps out with, is those kind of things
Mhm.
that we often kind of take for granted, but that's you guys that do all that stuff.
Yeah, lots of little things like broken water fountains, messed up trails, things like that. You know, we got to replace a couple steps. We got to replace a buoy line. Lots of little things that just are a little tricky for the state to cover as far as the parks operating budgets go. We can swoop in and help with. So if you're interested in supporting your state parks, whether it be the state park right outside your door or the state park, 150 miles away, I would really suggest that you check us out and learn more about what we do and think about making a donation.
Yeah, and I've got a link there to this organization that Megan works so hard to run, and uh, you're kind of do it all there, and do an amazing job. But I really want you folks to spend some time and learn about it, because if you ever just want to, help, if you really get into our state parks, and we're just so lucky that we have such I don't know how to put it, like advanced state parks. I mean, they're really well done.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I would rank them right up there with a lot of the national parks, and so that's the Montana State Park Foundation that's kind of helping make these things shine the way they do. So I hope they'll do that. We're going to take one last break, and then when we come back, let's kind of wrap it up with some other interesting information that Megan's going to share with us as we continue to scare the heck out of ourselves right after this. I want to take a minute to thank Superior Hardwoods of Montana for their support of this podcast. It is what allows us to bring you the latest from Montana's great outdoors, with very few interruptions, by the way. That said, there is another reason we are lucky to have Superior Hardwoods of Montana on board. They are an amazing business that can offer all of you some of the most incredible wood products you have ever seen. Plus, Superior Hardwoods of Montana is still a place that actually cares about and appreciates their customers, the same way we appreciate you, our viewers and listeners. They offer you something original and totally unique, like their 11 acres of wood wall paneling, flooring, trim, beams, slabs, well, you name it. Every single piece has a story behind it. Wood from old barns, historic homesteads, even historic factories. And that amazing wood can be part of your story too. Right there in your home can be a piece of American history, brought back to life, custom milled and refinished to your specifications. So it not only tells its original story, but also speaks to who you are and how special your home is. Superior Hardwoods also has exotic woods, live edge slabs, pre-finished and unfinished flooring too, all in stock and ready to go. Need help picking out the right material? Just ask. Their team has been doing this since 1977. They know how to guide you through the woods. Swing into their beautiful showroom at 5120 Highway 93 South in Missoula, or you can just check them out online at superior-hardwoods.com. That's Superior Hardwoods of Montana, local, knowledgeable, family run, and ready to help you build something that lasts. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see him. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast as we wrap up our spooky tour of ghost towns in Montana. Everything that Megan's talked about, there are links in the podcast description, so you can click on those links and get more information and learn about how you can plan your trip and go do that. One thing I wanted to bring up is near a lot of these ghost towns are actual old mines. There's federal agencies as well as state agencies and that, and they do their best to kind of block those off. But there are so many old mines around. There's a lot of them that are open. I mean, not purposely, but they're there. And I just want to stress as much as I can, don't go in any of these abandoned mines, because they are super dangerous. And when I say dangerous, what can happen with a lot of them, and I worked for a company when I was much younger that brought old mines back to life, mainly in the copper end of it. there are, as you get deeper in, there are trapped poisonous gases that have no, you can't smell them, but they can kill you like almost instantly. We used to wear these special sniffers that could sniff it out, even though we as humans couldn't smell it, it would, and it would set off these little alarms on our belt so we could clear out real quickly. So, again, just if you're hiking around the areas outside of these towns, if you come across an old mine, and you'll recognize it's an old mine, cool to look at. Do not go inside any of them. So there's my little safety tip.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. I mean, these ghost towns are ghost towns for a reason. There's reasons that people no longer live there. So I think going in with due respect for the site is really an important thing for people to remember. And don't let your imagination lead you down
Yeah.
a dangerous path. Make good choices. And anytime you're exploring our public lands, public spaces, historical sites, just being really respectful of those properties. People like the state parks, people like the Bannack Association and the Montana State Parks Foundation. We put a lot of time, effort, and money into preserving those sites. And preserving is a really important word. Preserving means keeping them as they were, keeping them up to that same standard of
Mhm.
what they were like historically. So if people are going in there, and I really think that people in their heart don't do this, but you
Yeah.
make bad choices sometimes, but just be really respectful of those spaces. And come in being ready to go into the outdoors, especially if you're going some places like sluice boxes where you're taking on a pretty significant hike. And also be respectful of private property that's adjoining those spaces. Someplace like Granite, it's a amazing, amazing historical site, but most of it is privately owned and not open to the public. And we want to be really respectful of those neighbors. They live next door to these parks. They're interacting with park visitors all the time, and we want to respect their space too.
Well, this has been fascinating, and again, if people want to help your organization, the Montana State Parks Foundation, how can they do that? What are the different ways we can help out?
Yeah, so the most direct way is to make a donation. And so a really easy way to do that is to go to our website, www.montanastateparksfoundation.org. You can make a donation there. And actually, currently, we're running a special gift promotion. We have an artist series that I kicked off last year. Our current artist is Stella Nall. She is an amazing artist born and raised in Montana. She's has Crow heritage, and she has designed a custom bison design for our merchandise this
Oh,
year. So
okay.
any donation that's over $50 will receive either a tote bag or a t-shirt of your choice. With Stella's really cool design. So definitely go check that out. And if you're, want a cool t-shirt to represent, go ahead and make a donation and we'll send one out to you. The other way to support us is actually by getting our license plate. It's always a great option and a great way to support the foundation. And otherwise, we're always looking for people to volunteer, people to get engaged, always looking for potential committee and board members. So just reach out.
Mhm.
My email is Megan, Megan, at montanastateparks.org.
And that's on the screen now. Also, in the podcast description, I've even made it super easy. There's a link. When you click on it, it will actually open up your email program and populate the address and all that. And you can email Megan, ask her any questions you have, and find out how you can do it. And they can also get on a ongoing email list to get announcements, which I subscribe to that. I love that because I'm always finding out new ways how you can get involved, even if, like you say, just volunteering. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And our newsletter also, we are featuring, actually, I have a great volunteer, Sarah Pilgrim, who's writing park showcase features in our newsletter. So she's doing a deep dive into all of our state parks. And every month we're putting out a new article written by her. That's just like a deep dive on each state park. So there's lots of cool info that you can get from our newsletters as
Mhm.
well.
And lastly, if you do have folks coming in to visit Montana, it's been my experience, it's a big hit when I send out some information about our different state parks, and especially, some of these unique ones like we talked about today. Megan, I want to thank you for all your time and for what your organization does and what you do for our state parks, and keep us posted, and I hope you come back again soon.
Yeah, I would be happy to come back and give you some more updates on our cool projects.
Yeah, and we'll see what you're dressed as next time.
I know. Who knows?
Who knows? Okay, Megan Vicking, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And that'll do it, folks. If you have any questions, thoughts, whatever, be sure and click those links and all that. Also, coming up, we are going to be giving some hunting information about how the hunting season has gone. So those will be some upcoming podcasts. And then we will be doing an ice fishing preview and a fall into winter fishing preview. So be sure and tune in for that. And then we'll get into some of those elk shoulder seasons that go later into the season. Some interesting stuff going on there. So, and if you ever want to get caught up in the other news, MontanaOutdoor.com. Thanks so much. Be careful out there. Be safe and, well, be good to each other. And we'll see you next time here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for watching the Montana Outdoor Podcast. You know, there's no way we could do this podcast without the incredible support of sponsors like Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock, high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss snowplows and accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go see them on the web at rmtte.com. We'd love to hear what you thought of this week's podcast. When you get a minute or two, shoot us an email and tell us your thoughts. Same goes if you have any questions for Rigger or this week's guest. Just send your questions or comments to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com. Hey, don't forget we should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, gang, we hope to see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.